So, Mike, here we are. We're going to observe Candlemas this Sunday, which is really on the 2nd, but the Sunday nearest. So what are your thoughts about Candlemas?
Yeah, so Candlemas, the occasion when the parents of Jesus bring the new infant Jesus after 40 days to the temple because their religion required of them that they buy back their firstborn for 5 shekels, put into the temple treasury, and they offer a sacrifice, a modest sacrifice, in order for the cleansing of Mary after 40 days, which for richer families could have been, I guess, a lamb or something, but for families of modest means, such as Jesus's, would probably have been a couple of pigeons or something like that. And interestingly, while the religious professionals failed to notice the Son of God coming into the temple, 2 extraordinary and eccentric characters, the 80-year-old prophetess Anna and Simeon, nearly blind, notice him and do recognize who is in their midst. And I really want to think about, I suppose, Anna and Simeon in relation to that. But I am influenced today by what I've been reading recently, one of which is this book by Alan Jacobs, Breaking Bread with the Dead.
Right.
And so I'm connecting what he says a little bit with Anna and Simeon. And he points out that these days there's this trend, isn't there, to dismiss those ancient texts or non-modern texts which are in any way patriarchal or sexist or racist, and to refuse to read them as a result. And he says this is, of course, catastrophic intellectually. He points out that, such great minds as Immanuel Kant, as Aristotle, as David Hume, as Shakespeare could be accused in various ways from some of their remarks as being patriarchal or sexist or racist or whatever. So the answer can surely not be simply to put it down and dismiss it. Equally well, he suggests that we can't simply just absorb and receive all of the prejudices that come with the thinking of these great minds. So what he suggests is, following one of the thinkers he quotes, is we need to have a kind of double thinking, kind of attentiveness here, a double listening, which is listening both to the authentic kernel, or the gems, and being generous to hoping that we will be illuminated by this, at the same time as not allowing our kind of critical faculty to be dulled by this. So we need to keep both things going, and the generosity that we show in doing that is actually a generosity for our own sakes, in order that we can learn. So you may say, well, what's this got to do with Simeon? Well, one of the people he quotes is, or he considers, is Jacob, who by the stream of Jabbok wrestles all night with a man who turns out to be God. And what does Jacob say in the morning? I will not let you go until you bless me. I will not let you go until you bless me. And he dovetails this with this kind of, generosity of mind that has this double listening approach to those who are past. And he says that to think that struggle and demand are incompatible with reverence and revelation is to misunderstand the nature of revelation. And I suppose that was one of the things that led me immediately to Anna and Simeon, that they have struggled for a lifetime, but have clung on with tenacious persistence to the promises of God. Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace according to thy word, for mine eyes have seen the salvation which thou promised. So I suppose it's kind of a weak analogy, really, this kind of like looking to the past with a generosity, but also with a tenacity that will not let go until we are blessed, that we see in Anna and Simeon, but which also writ large in Revelation more widely as Christians, that actually there's something here from Anna and Simeon that we need to learn from, and that actually in our religious busyness of just getting on, we're in danger of missing something of our tenacious clinging to those promises. Now, I could say more, but I've said quite a bit already. So what about you? Where
So,
does Candlemas stand for you?
my thoughts are much less sophisticated than yours. So I go to Candlemas and see this first of all as a turning point. It's the point at which we stop looking back at the beginning and start looking towards the cross. So from the cradle to the cross, and we reorientate ourselves. And Simeon and Anna help us do that. Simeon, through his reference to Mary about a sword will pierce your own soul also. And I think one of the things that struck me is, in terms of turning points, I just get a little bit of a sense that in terms of this condition in which we're living, this pandemic condition, there's a little glimmer of a turning point going on, with people beginning to think about what might it be like when we at least emerge from this current stage of lockdown and the next stage as more and more people are vaccinated, and therefore are beginning to say, so what are we going to build out of this? What state are we going to be in, and how do we build something that will be a future that will, let's say, a more just future? And one of the things that strikes me about the story of Simeon and Anna, and you referred to this, is that they are the ones who discern that it is the Son of God who has come into the temple. They are both identified as being devout and faithful, and that there is something about devotion and faithfulness that is absolutely key to, as it were, enabling you to reorientate yourself and to move towards the uncertainty of the future. Now, of course, their uncertainty is answered by the presence of the Son of God in the infant. They now have the answer that they have been seeking. And we, in our devotion and faithfulness, have the answer we have been seeking, but we need to persist in our devotion and faithfulness in order to discern what God is calling us to through this time as we move into a different time. So that's how I was kind of thinking, okay, this feels like there's a timeliness about this reorientation. What will see us through? It's devotion and faithfulness.
And that devotion and faithfulness is attractive to those who are observing it. I think that one of the interesting things about Anna and Simeon is they're not kind of obsessively anxious about themselves, are they? Yeah. You know, and Rowan Williams said recently that it's hard to trust people who are obsessively anxious about themselves, you know, and if all they're thinking about is how will this disaster make me look, or something like that. You don't trust people like that. But people who are devoted and faithful to something bigger than themselves, there's something about that which is actually a paradigm for us, I think, as Christians, you know, that eclipsing our nervousness and self-concern, we're kind of overtaken by that kind of like the goodness we see in God and that sense of joyful promise and presence. So, yeah.
And of course, Simeon and Anna are not anxious about the future of the temple.
No.
They're anxious about the future of the people of Israel, and indeed of the Gentiles. So similarly, we should not be anxious about, you know, what's going to happen to the church. Our anxiety, if I can use that word, should be directed towards how do we enable people together to come out of this, together to build a community that is just and in its own way faithful and responsive.
And like them, we should then be ready to be surprised by joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.